Marcus didn't know what to make of the strange events that unfolded that night. The whispers had been persistent, like a malignant presence that refused to leave him. His rational mind battled with his growing sense of fear as he packed his belongings the next morning. There was a heavy weight in the pit of his stomach, a gnawing suspicion that something far more sinister than a simple ghost story was at work in Eldridge. He had hoped to shake off the feeling of dread as he set out into the forest the next morning, his camera in hand, his notebook tucked in his jacket pocket. But the forest seemed to come alive in a different way as he entered. The trees loomed over him, their thick branches twisting like skeletal fingers, reaching toward the sky, in a desperate attempt to block out the sunlight. The air felt cold against his skin, and with every step he took, it seemed as though the woods themselves were closing in on him. The whispers, faint at first, began again. "Marcus." The voice was soft, but it sent a shiver down his spine. He tried to ignore it, chalking it up to the wind, or perhaps the isolation of the place. But no matter how fast he walked, no matter how hard he tried to shake off the sound, the whispers followed him. They were louder now, more insistent, as if the forest itself had taken a personal interest in him. "Marcus, come closer." Something stirred deep inside Marcus. Fear. And yet, despite the terror creeping up his spine, there was an undeniable pull. The call was something he couldn't resist. He knew it wasn't just the forest speaking. It was something deeper, something ancient, something that had been waiting for him. The deeper he ventured into the woods, the more familiar it felt. The path was barely discernible now, overgrown, with thick vines and brambles, but Marcus pressed on, his mind fixated on the whispers that grew louder with every step. He could feel the air around him growing heavier, the atmosphere thick with a sense of foreboding. Eventually, the path opened into a wide, expansive clearing. In the center of the clearing, there stood a massive, gnarled tree, the largest he had ever seen. Its roots spread out like veins across the ground, and the trunk twisted and bent in unnatural ways. At the base of the tree, there was something that made Marcus stop dead in his tracks. A stone archway, old and weathered, stood at the foot of the tree, its once intricate carvings now worn down by time. The air around it hummed with an eerie energy, like the fabric of reality itself was trembling. He stepped forward, drawn to the archway, his heart racing in his chest. Something about it felt wrong, but at the same time, it was as though the archway was calling to him, beckoning him to pass through it. The whispers were louder now, almost deafening, filling his head with their maddening chorus. "Marcus, come through." He didn't know what compelled him to do it, but before he could think better of it, Marcus stepped under the archway. The moment he did, the air around him seemed to shift. It was as though a veil had been lifted from his senses, and the world around him became distorted. The forest no longer seemed natural. The trees bent at odd angles, their trunks twisting like serpents. The sky above him was dark, but not from the clouds. It was as though the very fabric of the atmosphere had been torn open, revealing a vast, inky void beyond. For a moment, Marcus couldn't breathe. The atmosphere was thick, pressing in on him from all sides. He stumbled back, trying to retreat, but the archway had disappeared. He was trapped in this twisted reality, with the echoes of the whispers growing louder still. His heart pounded in his chest as the ground beneath his feet shifted, and he looked down to see the earth cracking open, revealing a glowing abyss. He could feel something stirring within it, something dark, ancient, and hungry. A shadow emerged from the abyss, tall, towering, and covered in a cloak of darkness. It moved toward him with a fluid grace, its eyes glowing a faint, sickly yellow. The whispers grew louder, as if they were emanating from the very creature itself. It reached out a hand, fingers long and skeletal, and in that moment, Marcus felt his body freeze, his limbs unwilling to obey. The creature's voice was like the crackling of dry leaves in a storm. "Welcome, Marcus." He couldn't speak. His throat was paralyzed with fear. The shadow loomed closer, its presence suffocating. And then, before Marcus could react, the creature's hand touched his forehead. A searing pain shot through his skull, and the world around him. When Marcus came to, he found himself lying on the ground, gasping for breath. His body was drenched in sweat, and his head throbbed as if his brain was being squeezed. He pushed himself up, the remnants of the vision still lingering in his mind. His surroundings had changed. He was back in the forest, but it was no longer the same place. The once familiar trees were now twisted and contorted, their branches reaching out like clawed hands. The ground beneath his feet was uneven, cracked and broken. The whispers were gone, but the eerie stillness that replaced them was far worse. It felt as though something was watching him, waiting for him to make the next move. Marcus tried to gather his thoughts, but the sensation of dread weighed heavily on him. He stood, his legs unsteady, and surveyed his surroundings. There was no path, no direction, only the oppressive silence. Then, through the darkness, he saw something. A figure, faint, almost ghostly, appeared in the distance. It moved slowly, as though it was walking through a water. Its form was shrouded in shadow, but Marcus could make out the outline of a person. His pulse quickened as he recognized the figure. It was a woman, her face obscured by a dark veil, but her presence was unmistakable. "Marcus," she said, her voice echoing through the stillness, cold and hollow. He tried to speak, but his voice failed him. The woman drew closer, and he could feel her presence like a weight on his chest. She stopped just in front of him, and, for the first time, Marcus could see her face, pale, almost ashen, with hollow eyes that stared at him like windows to another world. "You're not supposed to be here," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the sound of his racing heartbeat. "Who are you?" Marcus managed to croak, his throat dry and raw. The woman tilted her head, her smile stretching unnaturally wide. "I am the keeper of the forest's secrets. And now, Marcus, you are part of them." Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled, and the forest seemed to shift once more. The trees twisted and bent, their bark splintering as the very earth seemed to buckle. Marcus stumbled, falling to his knees. The woman's face contorted in pain, her expression shifting, as if she were caught in an invisible storm. "You cannot leave," she hissed. "Not now. The whispers, they are part of you now." Before Marcus could respond, the woman vanished into the air, leaving him alone in the dark, twisting forest. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of what had just happened. The whispers, the shadows, the creatures, they were all part of this cursed place. And now, so was he. Marcus had no choice but to keep moving. The forest was alive, its energy dark and consuming. Every step he took, the trees seemed to move. Closer, the ground growing more treacherous beneath his feet. He could feel the whispers again, swirling in his mind. They weren't just voices anymore. They were thoughts, memories, creeping into his consciousness like parasites. He couldn't escape them. The shadows were all around him now, watching, waiting. As he walked deeper into the forest, Marcus realized that there was no way out. No path, no escape. The whispering shadows had claimed him, just as they had claimed countless others before him, and he would never leave.